What is a Bitcoin?
Sort of universal digital currency.
The digital currency called Bitcoin has enjoyed a rapid rise in valuation.
Bitcoin is taking the market by storm and causing controversy.
We don't consider the virtual currency a currency.
It's an online currency, one not controlled by any government or any single company even.
In order to understand Bitcoin's potential to revolutionize the global financial system, we must first understand what it is and why it matters.
Bitcoin is kind of like email for money, right? If you remember, we used to write letters, now we do email. We used to, read the newspaper, now we read content online like Elite Daily. So Bitcoin is the next evolution of financial services. It means it's just a better way to trade money, to store money, and you can do this on a global basis. If you're in Argentina, or you're in China, or you're in San Francisco, it doesn't matter, you can use Bitcoin.
It's essentially digital gold. It's restricted in supply, unlike, say, a central bank who can just print away every day more money. There's a restriction. The algorithm of Bitcoin prevents that from happening.
In the 5 years since it was first introduced to the public, Bitcoin's popularity and value have skyrocketed. In 2010, a Bitcoin was valued at less than $1. Last December, the price for a single Bitcoin soared to more than $1,100.
But what do you actually use them for, Trace Mayer?
Well, I use them to pay independent contractors that are all over the world, whether they're in India or the Philippines. I've used them to purchase digital products such as ebooks or MP3 files. With Bitcoin, everything is mathematically provable. The number of Bitcoins that exist, whether they've been transferred or not. When you log into your online banking and you see that you have digits in there, like, why do you trust that?
Bitcoin's users use virtual wallets to store Bitcoins. These wallets can be managed using special applications and software that can be downloaded to phones, tablets, or personal computers.
If business owners would realize how simple it is to accept Bitcoin and how many advantages there are without any disadvantages when they're using a merchant processor, more and more businesses are going to start doing it once they realize how easy it is and that there's no downside, essentially. Credit cards normally charge a 3 to 5% processing fee. With these Bitcoin merchant processors, like the one we're using now, BitPay, they charge 1%. There's some newer ones that charge a 0% processing fee. Another thing is with credit cards, it usually takes anywhere from 3 to 5 business days to really get the money into your bank account, which can be tough for cash flow sometimes. With this, they send the money into our account the next morning. And the third thing, which is actually really important, especially for small businesses, especially in the food and beverage industry, is chargebacks. With Bitcoin, there's no chargebacks because essentially it's like digital cash. Once it's sent, it's sent.
But while the Bitcoin market is growing more popular in the mainstream, and as more Bitcoin businesses are founded each day, the virtual currency now faces some serious hurdles that could jeopardize to its long-term viability.
A lot of Bitcoin people say there's no financial crime that happens whatsoever, and that's not true. There is actually a lot that happens. But on the other hand, it's nowhere near what we think it is. So the US government has done some studies and found out that not a lot of people use it for terrorist financing, but the concern is when those types of people learn about it, they will start to use it for terrorist financing.
As a technologist, I'm not trying to build technology that satisfies one political leaning or another. I'm focusing on how can we provide choice so that those people who want to evade taxes or be fully anonymous, sometimes I want to be fully anonymous, and at the same time allow consumers who want to buy things from Amazon with Bitcoins, that Amazon has a clear path for how they can do that from a regulatory compliance standpoint so that those people that want to buy things from Amazon can.
Federal agencies have grown concerned over Bitcoin's role in facilitating illegal purchases through a number of black market websites, including Silk Road, which was shut down by the FBI last October. And because the industry has little oversight or regulation, little can be done to bring the perpetrators to justice.
I think the most important thing is to really do your research, do your due diligence. And for people who aren't completely unfamiliar with this space, it's kind of similar to people that were investing in penny stocks in the 1920s. If you don't do your research and you start investing in financial institutions that are unregulated, then you could lose a lot of money. And I think there are people who are thinking of getting into the Bitcoin space that should have the similar concerns.
Mt. Gox was a Bitcoin exchange based in Tokyo that was handling up to 70% of all Bitcoin transactions as of 2013. Then in February 2014, the Mt. Gox company suspended trading, closing its website and exchange service, and filed for a form of bankruptcy protection from creditors. It announced that around 850,000 Bitcoins belonging to customers and the company were missing and likely stolen, an amount valued at more than $450 million at the time.
I think it's sad that money was lost, that wherever it went, we don't know. But I think it can be a good thing in that it's an investment in the need to address this issue.
You know, people compare Bitcoin to where we are today to 1994 and the internet. In the beginning of the internet, it wasn't secure. You had to have systems like SiteAdvisor and VeriSign and RSA come on and say, here's how we're going to secure the internet, make it possible that you can actually type your credit card into a web browser and not get your credit card stolen.
You have people that are increasingly willing to fund Bitcoin companies, and they want to work with regulators because there's so much money funding those efforts that automatically kind of shifts the trend within the industry because they have more resources.
You know, the beautiful thing about technology is that it's apolitical. And trying to shape it, direct its path as far as a political motivation, I think is both disingenuous and hurts the technology.
I think we're seeing that the U.S. efforts are to regulate the intersections with Bitcoin. So like our payment processors, our exchanges where you exchange dollars for Bitcoins, etc. But they seem to be of the opinion, you know, we're going to not regulate the protocol itself. And that makes a lot of sense because it's the technology and the innovation that has really driven the U.S. economy for the last 20 years. It's the Facebooks, the Googles, the Amazons, it's our tech industry, and I think they see this as being a similar area.
There's a lack of healthy dialogue between the various parties. The banking community, the libertarian Bitcoin community, the regulatory community, there's a lot of voices in each camp. So I think trying to find some common ground that satisfies most people's needs is really challenging.
When I first started writing about Bitcoin about a year and a half ago, I was one of the only lawyers to suggest that it should be regulated. And as a result of that, I got hundreds of tweets one day, most of which were very negative, but one of which was an American tweeter that tweeted out Christine Duhame should be killed.
I mean, we've received death threats and, you know, Bitcoin is bigger than any one individual, in my opinion, and so that's the philosophy I take on it.
But there's still a faction of people that really believe in Bitcoin and don't want it to change, and they see it as a threat when you suggest that Bitcoin has legal risks.
As politicians in Washington and throughout the world consider ways to better regulate the industry, Bitcoin's most enthusiastic supporters flocked to Manhattan on April 7th and 8th to attend a conference that would explore the future of digital currency.
Bitcoin at $465.
It's the future of currency. It's decentralized, no government controls it, no one person controls it. It's run by the community. It will start to be accepted everywhere in 10 or 20 years.
I see it exponentially growing worldwide. I don't think you can limit it. I don't think it's limitless.
The industry's sort of at an explosion point right now. You know, you can tell from the conference here and the amount of people that there's a wide variety of interests, not just from consumers, but from merchants, from investors, venture capitalists. There's a lot of money coming to the Bitcoin world.
The value of anything, whether it's dollars or gold and silver or Bitcoin, comes from the value that people ascribe to it in their minds. So if people believe something is valuable, that's where the value comes from. It's not an intrinsic property of a dollar bill or a piece of gold. It's because people believe it's valuable.
There have already been several millionaires made in Bitcoin. In my opinion, there will be many billionaires made in Bitcoin.
I think it's going to be regulated in Canada and in the US a lot more than it is now. And I think it's going to be adopted by the major banks and will become a mainstream way in which we do financial transactions.
We might have micropayments inside publications online where you can pay half a penny every time you read an article. So this kind of electronic money exchange is going to change the world.
People are speculating that you could start seeing contracts that somehow include Bitcoin technology. But who knows? This is just speculation. 5-10 years from now, Bitcoin could be anywhere.
Bitcoin's either going to zero or it's going to $1 million a coin. If it's going to be successful, it's going to be worth a lot.
5 years from now, where I'd like it to be is changing the world in a positive way, providing mobile banking to the millions of unbanked people in the world, bringing up the quality of life of many people in developing countries who don't have access to safe financial systems, and increase the standard of living for everybody globally. That's what I'd like to see.
Bitcoin never sleeps. It's a 24/7 industry, and if you take a vacation, you're going to miss it.